Hello guys. After I asked what kind of content you'd like to see next on the channel, a lot of you requested what-if scenarios, and I found that idea extremely interesting. So in today's video, we're going to do a mental exercise exploring 5 possible what-if scenarios. Let's start this list with, what if Sang-woo was in the games in Season 2? I noticed a lot of people have differing opinions on this, so I wanted to share my own. While I agree that he played the game best in Season 1 and arguably deserved to win, I still think people are overestimating him, especially when it comes to In-ho. I've seen a lot of comments saying Sang-woo would have seen through In-ho immediately, but I don't think that's true. In-ho's only mistake was calling Gi-hun by his name, but even that could be explained away. In all other aspects, he played his role as a fellow player flawlessly. Now, regarding the idea that Sang-woo would notice player 001 missing from the hanged bodies, yes, he might notice, but I don't think he'd read too much into it. Maybe if he had Gi-hun's insight, he'd have some doubts. But without that knowledge, I doubt Sang-woo would suspect anyone of being a mole. I mean, who in their right mind would volunteer to participate in such a deadly competition? That said, Sang-woo would have never agreed to the rebellion plan in the first place. Realistically, there was no way it could succeed. Their best chance was to take In-ho's offer, eliminate the other player, and hope to have the majority after the special game. Honestly, I don't understand how Hyunju agreed to that plan. With her military experience, she should have known it was doomed from the start. Now, if we're just comparing traits, I think both Myungi and Hyunju displayed stronger qualities than Sang-woo did in Season 1. Sang-woo only figured out the Dalgona game after Se-byuk shared what she saw in the kitchen. His strengths were mainly his quick and critical thinking, like how he intuitively realized men might perform better in certain games, and how he manipulated Ali and survived the 4th game. Meanwhile, Myungi had a superior strategy during the first game, and showed impressive manipulative skills throughout. If you ask me, comparing just those two, I think the balance of traits slightly leans in Myungi's favor, but the best traits in the show were demonstrated by Hyunju, both physically and mentally. Just her emotional intelligence during the 6-legged race already puts her on equal footing with Sang-woo. So yes, I believe Sang-woo would have made more rational decisions overall, but I don't think he would drastically alter the plot or be a guaranteed winner in the 2nd edition of the games. The main things he would have done differently are stopping Gi-hun from initiating the rebellion, and if he were in Gi-hun's place, killing the other players without hesitation. Beyond that, I don't think he would have changed much. He'd vote to continue the games all the way before the final game, and that's about it. Now moving on to the next question from our list. What if Jun-ho had found the island much earlier? Let's say right when the VIPs arrived. That would definitely make things more interesting, because the guards' attention would be split. Let's also assume he wasn't alone this time, that the entire team was there, not just Jun-ho and Kim, because if it were just the two of them, I don't think they would have done much damage to the organization anyway. The best possible outcome would have been capturing the front man, but in the end, that still wouldn't change anything. I believe In-ho was prepared to die, and wouldn't beg for his life, not even if the person pointing the gun was his own brother. He didn't seem to care when he saw Jun-ho again. He didn't even bother to say anything back, so even if they managed to take him hostage, In-ho would likely just say, "Go on, kill me if you want." He wouldn't stop the games or make any compromises. He knew they wouldn't escape alive, even if he were to die. And in the tragic scenario where Jun-ho actually kills his brother, again, it wouldn't make a real difference. The games would continue. The VIPs would simply appoint a new front man, probably promote someone like the Black Square Mask, and that would be it. Jun-ho's actions wouldn't have any major impact. This was already foreshadowed in the conversation between In-ho and Gi-hun, where In-ho told him that even if he died, nothing would change. But what if Jun-ho had brought the full team with him? Would that change anything? Unfortunately, I don't think so. Even if they somehow managed to infiltrate the island, their only real advantage would be the element of surprise, but they'd lose that the moment they opened fire through the glass screen. They couldn't use the elevator since it only works with the administrator mask, so breaching through the screen would be their only option. As soon as the guards heard gunfire, they'd shift all focus to the intruders. And unlike how they handled the players, this time the guards would go all in to eliminate the threat. No games, no warnings. The only slightly viable option would be to coordinate with the Coast Guard and launch a joint infiltration, but even then, it would likely be too late. We've already seen that the island is under constant surveillance by drones. If the guards spotted the Coast Guard approaching, they'd trigger the evacuation protocol. The bomb would be armed and everything would explode before the Coast Guard even reached the island. If that happened, all the players would be wiped out in the blast. So in my opinion, even if Jun-ho had found the island sooner, it still wouldn't have made a real difference. Now for our next scenario, what if the baby wasn't declared a player? This one's actually pretty straightforward. The players would have voted to end the game right there. We saw player 353 and player 336 already discussing changing their vote. I also believe Myung-gi would have voted to leave as well, making it a 5-3 vote in favor of terminating the game before the final round. The only purpose of declaring the baby a player was to influence the vote, to push people toward continuing the game. Before that, each player's share was 5.7 billion won. After the baby was included, it dropped to 5 billion. As I mentioned in the other video, this 700 million loss wouldn't be enough to justify risking their lives for one more game. Except for player 100, all of them had cleared their debts and would have walked away with a substantial amount of money. The real punchline was the subtle hint the guards gave during the final dinner. Human greed, combined with anger toward the baby, and the predictable sacrifices planned for the finale, swayed the majority to vote in favor of continuing the game. Another good question related to this topic is, if the baby wasn't declared a player but the guards still dropped that final hint, would the players still vote to continue, or would they take their shares and walk away? That's an interesting one, and I believe the answer is they would vote to leave. At that moment, the sacrifices would likely be Min-soo, Gi-hun, and Myung-gi. But would the remaining players really risk it like that? When it was 6 versus 3, the advantage was clear. Min-soo was in severe withdrawal, the baby didn't count, so their only real challenge was Gi-hun. But without the baby as a player, they'd have to deal with both Gi-hun and Myung-gi. A 5 versus 3 fight without knowing the rules or the nature of the next game doesn't sound nearly as promising as a 2 versus 6 scenario. Honestly, I think the game would have been so much more compelling to watch if the baby wasn't declared a player. All of Gi-hun's actions during that round revolved around protecting the baby. But if the baby weren't involved, we'd get a whole new set of decisions. And I believe this would have showcased Gi-hun's morality even more effectively than his sacrifice did. How would he respond in this situation? Would he suggest drawing lots again? And if the others refused, would he take up the knife and kill someone just to ensure he had someone to throw off the platform? I swear, that game would have been 10 times more intense and thought-provoking if the baby hadn't been a factor. Now let's move on to the next scenario. What if Thanos hadn't died in that bathroom fight? Because honestly, his death created a domino effect that completely changed the trajectory of the series. I'd argue his death had the single biggest impact on the direction Season 3 ultimately took. First of all, the aftermath of the special game would have been much more brutal, and if Thanos had been high enough, I actually think he might have joined Gi-hun in the rebellion, just for the thrill of it. But the most important consequence of his death centers on the drugs. Without his death, Namgyu wouldn't have gotten the pills. And if Namgyu hadn't taken the drugs and lost them during the hide-and-seek game, then they wouldn't have ended up in Min-soo's hands. And without the drugs, Min-soo would have never passed the 4th game. I don't think Min-soo had the courage to kill someone without chemical assistance. We saw how Young-sik struggled to kill player 172, and if it weren't for player 203, Young-sik would have been the one who died. I believe Min-soo would have faced the same problem as Young-sik, but unlike him, no one would have stepped in to save him. And despite being a red player, Min-soo would have been killed during the hide-and-seek round. After the bathroom fight, there were 5 pills left. Namgyu abused them, but if Thanos had survived, he would have avoided that mistake. He already warned Namgyu that the drug was a powerful experimental one, and only gave him a pill after Namgyu claimed he had tried every drug imaginable, and even showed the scars on his hand as proof. So, if Thanos had lived, they would have had enough pills to last until the end of the games. 2 for the 4th game, 2 for the 5th, and 1 final pill that Thanos would have likely kept for himself in the final round. I don't think Thanos would have had any problem clearing the hide-and-seek game, even if he ended up on the blue team. As for the 5th game, he looked athletic, tall, and capable, which would have made jumping the gap in the rope game much easier. Even Namgyu, in his withdrawal state, managed to make it to the jump. He only failed because he was struck by the rope. At the moment he realized Minsu had lied about the pills. If he could get that far in his condition, he definitely would have completed the game if he were sober. And just imagine those two, Thanos and Namgyu, making it to the final game. That showdown would have been incredible. And one last thing, Hwang Dong-hyuk actually said in an interview that Thanos would have helped Jun-ho during the rope game, just to annoy Myung-gi. Now imagine that. Imagine if Thanos actually stepped in, gave her a hand, and Jun-ho somehow survived the 5th game. Just picture what that would have done to Myung-gi. The biggest what-if scenario, at least in my opinion, is, what if Jun-ho had told Gi-hun about his brother and shown him a picture? Just imagine the shock Gi-hun would feel, realizing that Jun-ho's brother is pretending to be player 001. How would he react? Would he play along with the bluff? Or would he call him out and start a fight right there? Honestly, in a one-on-one fight, Gi-hun wouldn't stand a chance. And even if he told the others that Oh Young-il was actually the mastermind behind the games, I doubt anyone, maybe not even Jung-bae, would believe him. His best course of action might have been to attack In-ho when he was vulnerable, like when he was sleeping. But the real question is, would Gi-hun play the games the same way if he knew In-ho's true identity? Would In-ho pick up on the fact that Gi-hun knew? This could go in a million different directions. And that's what makes it, in my opinion, the most interesting what if of them all. There are so many branching paths. We can't even predict how it might unfold in broad strokes. What if Gi-hun ended up killing In-ho during the games, and everyone else saw him as a monster, not realizing he was actually trying to save them? Just imagine how much that would have changed the entire dynamic. Let me know in the comments. How do you think Gi-hun would have reacted if he knew about In-ho beforehand? And also, let me know if you want me to cover other Squid Game scenarios, because soon I'll be starting the transition to Alice in Borderland. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.